Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And this film was actually a request from three separate viewers. So today I'm going to do the 1990 film Jacob's Ladder. Here is your trivia question for today. What well-known actor appears uncredited as Jacob's son Gabe? So, in the film Jacob's Ladder, we meet our main character of Jacob, who is just an average everyday guy who works as a mailman. He's had quite a bit of trauma in his life previously, but everything seems to be going good now as he lives with his girlfriend Jezzy. Although there is one thing that is now causing a huge issue for Jacob, he's beginning to see horrifying, terrifying images of creatures and scenes. Maybe this all leads back to something that happened while he was in Vietnam. Or perhaps these horrifying things are actually happening to him. Or what if nothing is actually doing this to him and he's just going crazy? This movie was directed by Adrian Lin. Lin turned down the opportunity of directing The Bonfire of the Vanities to be able to direct this film. Other possible directors for this movie were Sidney Lumet, Michael Apted, and Ridley Scott. This movie was written by Bruce Joel Rubin, who was inspired by a dream he had about being trapped in a subway. Other things that inspired Rubin were the Bardo Thodol, which was the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the biblical story of Jacob's Ladder, and a short film called Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. The drug aspects of the film were inspired by the book Acid Dreams, the CIA, LSD, and 60s Rebellion. Rubin was also the same person who wrote the film Ghost. The film was originally going to be produced by Paramount Pictures, where Lin had made both films Flashdance and Fatal Attraction. But Paramount demanded that the end of the movie be changed, and Lin refused to do it, so Paramount pulled the plug on the picture. Lin then went to Carolco Pictures, who offered him complete creative control. Tim Robbins, who plays Jacob Singer in the film, did do a great job, but there were other actors that were also up for the role. Tom Hanks was originally offered it, and in a funny twist of fate, ended up choosing to do Bonfire of the Vanities instead. Also, Richard Gere, Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, Don Johnson, and Mickey Rourke were also up for it. The character of Jezzy is played by Elizabeth Pena, but other actresses that almost had that role were Jennifer Lopez, Andie MacDowell, Madonna, Demi Moore, and Julia Roberts. In the film, Danny Aiello plays the character of Lewis, who is Jacob's chiropractor, and in fact, they actually had a real chiropractor on set to ensure authenticity. There are also a few other famous faces in this movie that you might recognize, including Jason Alexander, Ving Rhames, comedian Lewis Black, and even Kyle Gass from Tenacious D. The subway that appears in the film was actually an abandoned lower level portion of a train station. It was retiled and fixed to look like it was in working condition. All special effects were filmed live with no post production. The way that they did the shaking head effect was filming an actor waving their head around while keeping their shoulders and body completely still at 4 FPS, and then they'd play it back at 24 FPS frame rate. Director Adrian Lin made sure that Jacob and all of his hallucinations never appear in the same shot together, so it kept you questioning. The imagery in the film was inspired by photographs by Joel Peter Witkin and Diane Arbus, and also art by William Blake, H.R. Geiger, and Francis Bacon. All of the primary actors in the Vietnam sequences actually went through a 5-day military boot camp. Here's something interesting you may not be aware of, but the film Jacob's Ladder was a major inspiration for the early Silent Hill video games. This movie was filmed in New York and Puerto Rico. In 2019, they apparently remade this film. I haven't seen it yet, but from what I've heard, it's apparently not very good, but I will watch it one day and then give my own review probably on that as well. So when it comes to the original film, Jacob's Ladder, this movie is definitely very intriguing, and it's got a lot of visceral visuals that are absolutely fascinating to see. Unfortunately, there were times where I felt like the movie was kind of dragging on a bit, and so I was just a little bored at times. So I think I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. Now, if you enjoyed this movie, other films I recommend checking out are Devil's Advocate, Naked Lunch, Angel Heart, and Donnie Darko. Now it's time for the answer to the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. What well-known actor appears uncredited as Jacob's son Gabe? So the actor who played Gabe was a young Macaulay Culkin, and the rumor is that he wasn't credited because his father, who was his agent at the time, did not want his son associated with such dark material. Although, as you can probably guess if you know anything about his dad, he didn't mind cashing the paycheck. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.